Real haunted house story. This is a true story about a house that was haunted. 1980. My parents got divorced when I was 2. My mom and I moved into a house with her sister, Carol, who was divorced as well. It was an old white farmhouse with a silo and barn they rented from a local doctor in Huntingburg. It was located on Old Huntingburg Road. Most of the phenomena that happened there happened to my mom. It first started off with little things, like things would be missing, hairbrushes, the phone book, stuff like that. There was also a room upstairs that every once in a while, there would be a puddle of water on the floor. It wouldn't have been raining, my diaper didn't leak, and we had no animals. It was also in hardwood floor, never left a watermark. There was one night when Mom and I were sleeping, and Carol worked second shift, and when she came home around 11 p.m., Mom heard her come in, do her thing, and went to her room. Minutes later, the kitchen light came on. Mom's and my rooms were on the ground floor, and she could see the light from our room. Then the doors and drawers started opening and shutting, like someone was looking for something. Mom was getting mad because she didn't want to wake me up. She was about to get up when it stopped, and the light went out. Next morning, Carol asked my mom, "What the hell were you looking for last night?" Mom was like, "Me? I thought it was you." My Aunt Carol had every explanation for everything that went on in that house. She couldn't explain this one. One day she was talking on the phone and water started coming out of the receiver. She looked up at the ceiling. No water. She even took the phone apart. Couldn't figure that one out. Another time, Mom and I were in the house and we were upstairs, and Mom was doing something when she heard a loud bang from downstairs. Back in the day, workers were blasting for coal or ore, and sometimes it would shake the house, so Mom figured that it was just a picture that fell off the wall. So she went downstairs, looked around, didn't see anything, so back upstairs she went. Happened again, bang. So back down she went, looked around, and this time heard it again, bang, coming from upstairs. Well, I was still up there, so she ran upstairs, grabbed me, and we left. We came back later when Carol was home. Mom would tell her what happened, and Carol wouldn't believe her again and blew it off. The very last night we stayed there, we were all sleeping. Mom woke up around 1 a.m. to the sound of someone breathing beside her. She would listen and listen. She would hold her breath and could hear me in my crib breathing, but still heard this slow in and out breathing right beside her. Mom says she knows the expression scared stiff. The only thing she could move was her eyes to see the time. As she lay there, she was drifted off to sleep. When she woke up, it was light outside. She packed up all her stuff and found a different place to live that same day. It wasn't long after that Carol moved out too. Mom never said anything about what happened because she didn't want people to think that she was crazy. Until one night. Mom worked in the ER at the time, and one night a guy that she knew came in. Apparently, he came home drunk that night, got into a little fight with the old lady, and she beat the crap out of him. That's why he was there. While Mom was looking at his chart, she noticed that they lived in that house. When she got into the room, it was just him, so she started talking about that house, said she used to live there and stuff. Then she asked him if anything weird happened there. Mom said he sat up straight and said, "I hear him all the damn time. Up there banging around. I'll run up there with a baseball bat and they'll stop." Mom then knew that she wasn't crazy. Fast forward about 10 years. I was around 15 when Mom took me out there. It was on a Friday or Saturday night. Mom and my stepdad had some friends over at the house, drinking, having a good time, when somehow the subject got brought up. Mom never told this other couple this story, let alone my stepdad, and when she finished, they all wanted to go see it. So I and my parents, the other couple, their 3 kids, and their dog headed out. On the way there, my stepdad was telling my mom that it wasn't true. Quit freaking out the kids, he said. He didn't believe in ghosts. Yet. When we got there, the house had been abandoned. The grass was up to our knees, and of course it was dark. When we got inside, I was freaking, but Mom was like taking my hand and giving me the tour. This was our room, and this was the kitchen. Look at the beautiful bay windows, stuff like that. I was thinking, that's great, Mom, can we leave now? While we were there, nothing really happened. We didn't hear anything, see anything, and the dog they brought wasn't acting weird. But there was a closet door right when you walk in the back door that would open. The guys were trying like crazy to open that door. They kicked and pulled and pushed and the thing would not open. Someone asked my mom what was behind that door, and she said that she couldn't remember. We were getting ready to leave and couldn't find my stepdad, so we started calling out his name. Here he comes out of the house with a weird look on his face. We get in the car and leave. When we got back to the house, the guys started talking about that door again. They were adamant on wanting to see what was on the other side. Then, my stepdad told them what happened. When we were at the house, my stepdad said he heard something like a sweeping sound coming from upstairs. He thought one of the guys were up there, so he was going up to scare them. While walking up, he heard it again. When he was up there, that's when he heard all of us yelling for him. That's when he thought to himself, shit, I'm the only one up here, so headed back down. When we pulled up and walked up to the back door, guess what? The closet door stood wide open. It was just a closet with nothing but packets of ramen noodles and some old records. The guys, minus my stepdad, went in the house. Nothing happened, so we went home. When we got home, Mom noticed that someone brought with us those waltz records. Mom freaked out thinking something was going to come home with them, but nothing did. I actually had those records and played them. Nothing happens. It was my senior year. Mom begins telling me that the local fire department is holding some fire training at the house. She said that when they're done, they're going to just burn the whole thing down, and she wanted to go watch. So we drove and parked about 200 yards away. Great view. Then, they set it on fire. I don't know if this whole thing was just my mind playing tricks on me, but Mom pointed it out. When the fire reached the second floor, really strange looking smoke came out of the front window. It was long and black. Like, I can't explain it, just weird looking. So anywho, the house burnt down, the silo and barn still stand, and someone built a brand new house there. One time, Mom did some research on that property, wanting to know who, why, how. Here's a couple conclusions and just some freak accidents, and they all happen within a square mile of this house. Number 1, the old man who originally lived there was struck and killed by a passing car on his way to get to the mall. Number 2, a neighbor boy was killed by falling down a silo while playing with his brother. Number 3, a man was crushed to death when the jacks gave way and his car fell top of him. Happened on a short curve right past FedEx. Number 4, a motorcyclist driving too fast lost control on the railroad tracks and died. Number 5, suicide, not paying attention. A man who worked at Farbest Foods walked right in front of the train when it passed one day. Number 6, and the best of all, the house was built on Indian burial grounds. Thank you for reading. I've been wanting to share this for a while now, but could never find the time. Oh yeah, one last thing. Mom ran into one of the neighbors on that road. Actually, he would be the closest neighbor. To make a long story short, he told Mom to never tell that story to his wife, 'cause they're hearing noises in their basement since that house burnt down. A haunted house? I am new to this site, but I really want to share something that happened to me. Me and my family lived in a small house in a village near Amsterdam in the Netherlands. My parents bought it somewhere around 1979. At the time, I was 2 years old. The house was built somewhere around 1910, and for as long as I can remember, there was always something strange going on. As a young child, I could frequently see shadowy figures upstairs, and from time to time, I heard someone or something breathing or scratching from inside the walls. I remember that at night, I could regularly see these strange figures, whom looked like long black shapes, moving in an odd, rhythmic pattern through my bedroom. And one scary thing I remember like it happened only yesterday. I was about 4 or 5 years old, and I began to notice them more often, or let's say, I became aware of the fact that what I saw wasn't something normal, and it really started to scare me. Every night it looked like they were moving closer to the edge of my bed, and at a certain point they came so close that I hid myself under the sheets so I could not see them. Of course, that didn't help much, because now I started to hear them. They made a strange mumbling sound, and for a child, or now as an adult, I could not make out what it was. But it scared me so much, and after a few nights, I was so scared that I kicked with my foot at the edge of my bed. To my horror, I really did hit something, and it made a loud and eerie kind of scream. A few seconds later, my mother entered my room, asking me why I made such an awful scream. I told her what happened, but it was of no use. I could not convince her that it wasn't me, but one of the monsters near my bed. She tried to calm me and told me that there were no such things as ghosts or monsters. She told me that I was safe in my room and asked me to go back to sleep. It may sound strange, but from that moment on, I never heard the noises again, and I never saw those things again until 1989. In that year, my mother suddenly died and left me, my father, and my 2 younger brothers to take care of ourselves. From that moment on, the atmosphere changed in the house. I started to see the shadowy figures again, and the scratching noises and the breathing came back. I could hear it all throughout the night. One day, I noticed that our cats started to behave strange. They became very jumpy and nervous, and refused to go into certain places in the house, one of these places being my room. It was like they could see things that we, or most of us, apparently couldn't. What also spooked me was that some places in the house were freezing cold, for no reason really. My father and 2 younger brothers also seemed to be affected by whatever it was. My father kept telling us stories about ghostly appearances and a woman figure that he'd seen in our living room. My 2 brothers became very aggressive and violent and used coarse language all throughout the day. It was like something dark took possession of the house. At night, things got really creepy. Something was constantly pulling my sheets away and made frightening noises from inside the walls. Downstairs, I frequently heard people walking or moving things around. Our cupboards and closets were opened and shut all night through, and every time it happened, I went downstairs to see who was there, and every time there was nothing but a couple of scared cats hiding under our couch. One day, one of my brothers asked if I heard the strange noises the night before. Of course I heard the noises, but I was curious about his story and asked him what he was talking about. He described all the things I heard every night. He thought that we had a burglar in the house, so he stormed downstairs to teach him or her a lesson, but there was nothing there, and angry and frustrated, he went back to bed. In 1999, my youngest brother started to behave in such a bad manner that the authorities decided, with the consent of me and my father, to put him in a foster home. From that moment on, he immediately changed and became a friendly and caring young boy. I think that whatever haunted our house had lost grip on him, and therefore he changed. But I, my other brother, and my father could not move elsewhere and still had to deal with the house. In 2001, a friend of mine told me that whenever he came to visit our house, he felt like something in our house was watching him. It made him feel uncomfortable. He also said that from the corner of his eyes, it was like there were always strange black man-like figures, shapes, visible in, but also close around our house. I had never mentioned this to anyone, not even to my father and brothers. I was shocked, but didn't have the courage to tell him what was going on. But we talked about it for a while and made some silly jokes about it. That was a big mistake. And that night, I would learn the hard way. I do not recall the time, but suddenly my sheets were violently pulled off my bed. My room became freezing cold, and the scratching noises came from all the walls. It was almost like something was rapidly moving through all the walls. And then I heard very loud breathing and something which felt like enormous hands grabbed me by the neck and threw me into one of the corners of my room. Apparently, I lost my consciousness. When I came to it, my neck really hurt, and it was still very cold in my room. I decided not to stay there for one more second and rushed downstairs. That night I slept on one of our couches, with the company of our cats. That gave me a safe feeling. Next morning, father and brother had no clue what had happened that night. I asked them if they'd heard something, but they both said no. They did ask if there was something wrong with my neck, and I replied that I fell out of my bed and hurt my head and neck. I went to the bathroom and noticed a large bruise on my neck. That same day, my friend came to visit me again. He immediately noticed that I behaved strange and asked what was going on. I referred to our ghost stories the day before and told him that I've had the weirdest dream, that something attacked me and that I woke up in a corner of my room. Worried, he asked what was wrong with my neck. Before I was able to respond, he pulled my shirt up and he froze. I asked him what was wrong and what was there. "Do you want to know what's on your neck?" he asked. "You know that you have a bruise in the shape of a very large hand in your neck and on your shoulders." Now I was really afraid. And that day I told him everything that was going on. He immediately believed the entire story. My brother overheard my story, and when it came to an end, he told me that he was so glad that he was not going crazy. Unfortunately, later that year, my father's health rapidly worsened, and he started to show severe signs of dementia. But now, several people had noticed it, and since we did not know what it was, we all decided to try to ignore it, and most certainly not to offend it anymore. That seemed to be of little help. Things calmed down a bit, but we could still hear the noises, and every night things would still be moving around. The cold spots in the room remained, and for several months I refused to spend the night in my room. But at a certain point I decided that this was ridiculous, and I started to sleep there again. I don't know why, but it never bothered me again, and I was never attacked again. Somewhere around 2002, my father's condition worsened, and he could not live in the house any longer. So we all moved out. I moved to a small apartment near my old house, and my brothers moved somewhere else. The house was sold to our next door neighbor. He always wanted to buy the house so he could make one big house of both of the houses. I moved into my apartment, and for a while I feared that something had followed me to my new apartment. Again, I felt like I was being watched, and again I saw something, but this was different. It did not feel bad. The cats were not spooked, and one day I saw something that was as clear as day. It was an old lady, a friendly-looking old granny. I was not afraid of her, and spoke into the room right at the exact spot where I had seen her. I said that I did not mean to intrude, and that this was my house now, that I lived there now, but if she wanted, she was welcome to stay. Immediately, something changed in my apartment. Everything suddenly felt so serene and peaceful, and I've never seen her again. Later, I heard from our new next-door neighbor that an older brother had lived in my apartment. The sister took care of her brother, but then the sister died and the brother couldn't stay there, so he moved to a nursing home. That was shortly before I moved in. The woman my neighbor described was the woman I had seen. At the same time, my old neighbor started to have his own problems with the old house. Because he did not have the funds to immediately cost the renovation, he decided to rent the place out. Not a single one of his tenants stayed there for very long, but the most striking case was a young woman who rented the house. She told my old neighbor that she simply loved the place and even paid him 2 months in advance. A few days later, my old neighbor came home from his work and noticed a large truck in front of the house and several movers taking her stuff out. He wanted to know what was going on, and one of the movers told him that the woman did not want to spend another minute in that house. She did not even want to get near it, and gave them the key. My old neighbor could keep his rent. The man could not tell my neighbor what had happened to her, but something scared the living daylights out her. Up to this day, I still do not know what it was. Some of my friends say that it was most likely a poltergeist. Another friend said maybe it was a demon. And one girlfriend even mentioned that maybe it was the spirit of my deceased mother, although I refuse to believe that. Things were already off before she died, and I don't believe that she would ever turn to violence. Amityville in Sanford. Hey everyone, this is my first time posting, so please be gentle. So a little backstory so this makes a little more sense to you. My dad is a flooring installer and has been my whole life. So oftentimes, when he needed help, he would take me along on jobs. I got used to the trade, and by the time I was older, I was a decent helper for him. I live in Central Florida, about 20 minutes away from Orlando and 45 minutes away from Daytona, so about 10 minutes away from Sanford. Sorry for all the details, just wanted to be as descriptive as possible. So anyways, the story takes place a couple years ago when I was still in high school. I get home from school and I see my dad is home. I go to my room and do my homework and play on the computer for a bit. After a while, I hear my dad talking to my mom outside in the living room. My walls were very thin. I kept hearing him say, "Please go with me, I need to get done." And my mom refusing to. So I hear a knock on my door and my parents walk in. Dad says, "Hey, can you please come with me to finish a job? I know you got schoolwork to do, but your mom won't come and I can't finish by myself." So my dad, being the man he was, usually doesn't ask for help. So when he did, I took it as a sign that he really needed me. So I said sure. Now on the way to the job, I ask him the basic things I usually do. Where it is, how many feet, what do I need to do? Now his answers are weird to me. He says it's in Sanford, only a flight of stairs, and just to keep him company mainly. Now I'm all confused. Because normally my dad would have knocked this out before I got home from school, and the fact that he said just keep him company mainly gave me a weird feeling. Now we get to the neighborhood the house is at, and I ask him which house it is, and he says, "Don't worry, you'll know the house when you see it." Hello, I'm a red flag, nice to meet you. After not even 5 seconds of him saying that, we turn a corner and boom, I knew which house it was. Now I'm an avid horror movie watcher, and this house reminds me of, you guessed it, the house from Amityville Horror. My heart sank, and my body started to shake, because this house literally scared the shit out of me. It even had the same style windows from the house in the movie. So my dad stops the truck and I get out. Walking up to the house, I stop, turn to my dad and say, "Dad, what's wrong with this place?" He looks at me, puzzled, and with sort of a nervous grin, he says, "What do you mean?" I say, "Dad, there's something wrong with this house." I'm not one to believe in ghosts or anything, but I could feel that there was something wrong with this house, like something bad happened here. And I promptly said I couldn't go in that place. He said to me, "Buddy, please, I need to finish these stairs and I can't do it alone. This place creeps me out, and your mom wouldn't come with me." So me, trying not to be a coward, reluctantly goes into the house. Now, this house is big, with a set of winding stairs right in the middle of the house, as soon as you walk in the front door. Now me, normally, being curious, I like to explore these empty houses before I start the job. That wasn't the case with this place. I wanted to do the job as quick as possible and get the fuck out. Now, I look at the top of the stairs and see that part of the carpet had already been done. And I asked my dad, "You were here already?" And he said yes. Then I asked him, "Why didn't you already finish? This amount would have just taken you about an hour to do." And he replied, I shit you not. Because this house is evil and I keep getting the feeling that someone is watching me and I just can't concentrate. At this point I freak out. "You decide to tell me this now?" And he tells me that he didn't tell me before because he knew I wouldn't come. No shit. So I'm like, whatever, let's just get this done. 10 minutes into the job, and I start to hear thumping coming from upstairs, like someone walking around. I freeze and try not to look up. My dad tries to ignore it. Then, 5 minutes later, I hear drawers full of silverware opening and slamming shut in the kitchen. I had to go look. Stupid me, I know. I look in the kitchen, and not only is there no silverware, but there aren't any drawers in the kitchen for them to be in. I feel myself starting to lose my mind. I'm so scared at this point, I walk outside on the porch. My dad comes out, lights up a cigarette. I ask him, "Dad, what the hell happened here? This place isn't normal." Tears were forming in my eyes. He told me that his boss told him. This place was once owned by an older lady. Well, the stairs that we were working on, she apparently fell down and broke her neck and died at the bottom of the steps. I'm just thinking to myself, well, this is fucking great. We go back inside to finish the job. Now, all the while, I'm hearing footsteps upstairs. I'm starting to hear whispers. More invisible drawers with invisible silverware opening and slamming in the kitchen. This went on for 3 hours. I remember one point, I had to pee really bad, but I'd be damned if I was going to the bathroom by myself. I took a Gatorade bottle and went and peed in the truck. Now we end up finishing the job after what felt like ages. We pack up our tools and got the hell out of there. When I was packing up the truck, I dropped a roll of tape, and it rolled a bit down, so I grabbed it. I don't know what compelled me to look at the side windows of the house, but I did. And there it was. A black, shadowy figure looking directly at me. I stood there shocked in fear for what felt like 15 to 20 minutes. My dad called my name, and it broke my attention. And when I looked back up at the windows, it was gone. I ran to the truck. Dad asked me what was wrong, and I said, "Just take me home," and didn't speak the whole way back. To this day, the memory of that place still sends chills up my spine. I'll never go back. Side note, the house needed more restoring and floors done. So the company asked my dad if he'd do the whole house's carpet. He refused, obviously, but he'd offered the job to my uncle, and my uncle said yes and took my aunt with him to do it. Later that night, after my uncle got back from the house, he asked us if we felt something was wrong with that house. I said nothing, but my dad asked him, "Why? What happened?" Well, my uncle said that when he got there, he felt this eerie presence all throughout the house, like someone was watching him. And when he went outside to smoke a cigarette with my aunt, the door slammed shut so hard, the door got stuck and he couldn't open it. Well, when he was trying to open the door, he heard his cell phone ring. But the peculiar thing was that the phone kept ringing and ringing and ringing. It wouldn't stop. But when he finally got the door open, the phone stopped ringing abruptly. He checked the missed call and saw that it was his younger brother. He called him back and asked him what he wanted. Well, when his brother answered, he asked him, "Hey man, who was that answered your phone for ya?" And my uncle said, "What are you talking about? No one answered my phone. It wouldn't stop ringing and I couldn't get to it." Well, his brother, after a long pause, told him to quickly get the fuck out of the house he's in. Shocked, my uncle asked why, and I shit you not, this was his response. "Someone answered your phone after 3 rings, and in a deep voice said, 'Get out,' and hung up." My uncle said that he left all his tools and grabbed my aunt and hauled ass. He left the house open and wouldn't go back alone for his tools. Shit. I don't blame him. Thanks for reading, everyone. Sorry it was so long.